Once you watch this video, you won't look at dribbling the same ever again. I can guarantee this knowledge I'm going to give you will take your dribbling IQ past 99% of players, even pros. And this isn't just theory. It can be implemented into your game instantly. This exact framework I'm going to take you through that I created, which took me over 2 years of obsessive analysis and practical practice, is now being implemented by Premier League players. I had a first team player reach out to me last week in one of the top 3 clubs, and he's already seeing instant improvement. And he continues to look at it daily, especially with his individual sessions. The full framework can be found in both of these courses on my website, and we will cover the scope of all of this in this video. Part 2, the elite level dribbling guide, has just been released yesterday. My biggest project yet, and it's a masterpiece. Still with a 30% discount for the next 48 hours. This is what I wish I had when I was younger. When I played in League 1, I always had great dribbling, but a dribbling framework didn't exist, so I didn't know how to be more consistent with it. Through improving my dribbling IQ and implementing more effective training. So, let me share with you the most game-changing knowledge that will pave a clear path for you to become an elite dribbler in any situation. 1. The purpose of a skill. Now, do you ever get in a situation, maybe a 1v1 with a defender, and you either do 2 of these things? 1. You do lots of different skills back-to-back, moving your feet at lightning speed for the defender to hardly move. Or do you ever approach a defender and freeze? Not because you don't know any skills, but because you know so many. And it's almost like, okay, which one do I use? I've been in both situations countless times. And it's not necessarily that you're aware that you're overdoing it or freezing. You figure this out upon reflection after the game, going through your mistakes. And if you're honest with yourself when you break it down, you'll realize you didn't know what skill to use in that specific scenario. Think about it like this. If a builder has loads of tools in his bag, but he only knows how to hammer in a nail on a wall, all the other tools in his bag are useless. What's the point in having them if you don't know how to use them? And this is how dribbling works. In that analogy, the dribbling scenario that you're in is the problem to fix for the builder. And the way to fix that problem for you, the specific dribbling scenario, you need to use the right tool, the right dribbling skill. Because football is in the stone ages with player development, you've never been taught that each skill only works in specific scenarios. The same way a certain tool can only fix certain problems. For players who do multiple skills back to back and the defender doesn't even move, you're trying to hammer in a nail by twisting it with a screwdriver. In short, you're using the wrong skill for the wrong scenario, and multiple of them. For the player that freezes and the defender tackles you before you've even made your mind up, you're aware you have a huge toolbox of skills, and you're also aware subconsciously that you don't know how to use each one. So every time you come in a 1v1, the picture goes blank and you freeze. And in the elite level dribbling guide, you will learn what dribbling scenarios fit perfectly with the right skill to beat the defender. And I mean every single skill with every single possible scenario you will face. Some skills work amazingly in 5 different scenarios, whereas other skills only work good in 2. And we will cover some examples later on. 2. How to spot the scenario you're in. Now you're aware that you need to learn what skills work best in which scenarios to become an elite dribbler. You might now be thinking, well, how do I know what scenario I'm in? The 3 main factors that make up a scenario are 1. 4 dribbling scenarios. This is a framework I created. All dribbling scenarios can be condensed into. One of the main focuses of my first dribbling course, the fundamentals of a successful dribble. Breaking each one down. We have 1v1.
Defenders set in and around the box. Here's an example of what they look like. Defenders set outside the box and in deep areas. Here's an example of what they look like. Defenders running to get set. Here's an example of what they look like. Defenders set in and around the box. The defender set means that they have
2v1.
Deep/wide areas outside the box. Here's an example of what they look like. 2. In and around the box. Here's an example of what they look like.
Compact dribbles
They usually happen when the ball has just turned over play and you're being pressed instantly, or when you receive the ball in these areas with a high concentration of opposition players around. The main difference here is players that are pressing you are also responsible for protecting certain spaces on the field. When you enter the space, they press aggressively. When you beat them, instead of chasing, they fall back to the allocated area to protect. The main tactics used by top players in compact scenarios is composure, body feints, sharp successive touches, and baiting the defender to tackle. It's helpful to group compact scenarios into two subcategories. 1. Compact 1v1 scenarios. Here's an example of what they look like. 2. Multiple opponents. Here's an example of what they look like.
And driving dribbles.
Driving runs are very fast-paced and extremely valuable on a counter-attack when the ball is just turned over or when a team is set and seem impenetrable. It's useful to categorize driving scenarios into two subcategories: retreating driving runs and set driving runs. The difference between the two. With retreating attacks, you're attacking defenders who are retreating, both back to their goal.
Now with all of these, we can break them down even more. One way, the area of the pitch that you are in. A 1v1 will be slightly different when a player is approaching horizontally near the goal line versus horizontally higher up the pitch. Versus out wide, running towards the goal. One way this affects the defender can lead us onto point number 2. Defender type. There are 6 defender types. 6 different ways of defending. Different scenarios will make a defender adopt a different defending type. For example, 3 of them are a jockeying defender, characterized by the defender moving backwards into space, stood side on, showing you down one angle and shutting the other off. An engaged defender, characterized by the defender running towards the attacker, going for a tackle. Engaged defenders are easier to beat, and a chasing defender, characterized by the defender chasing from behind or the side. Similar to the defender running to get set, the main difference here is the defender. So once you understand the dribbling scenario that you're in, a 1v1, a 2v1, a compact dribble, or a driving dribble, combined with the area of the pitch that you're in, and on top of that, the defender type you're facing, the patterns we see are scary. In the elite level dribbling guide, every possible scenario that you will come across is covered, with every possible defender type. And do you understand how confident you become once you know how each of these scenarios work? You will see instant improvement, and I promise you, you will never see dribbling the same again. And one of the main things knowing all of this information gives us is being able to read 3, the defender's psychology. Understanding your opponent's intentions in any sport is the aim of the game. That's how chess players set traps. They understand how the move that they've just done affects their opponent's psychology. Now, being able to read their next move, a lot easier. It's how mixed martial arts work and any other sport, as well as life, even negotiations. All of this comes down to being able to read your opponent's intentions and fears. Let's take one of the hardest defender types to beat, the jockeying defender. Let's break down the psychology of a jockeying defender by diving deep into their intentions and fears. Okay, so let's say you're on the ball. I'm a jockeying defender. In this position, I would be showing you down the line like this, and I'm trying to cut off this angle. So first of all, let's break down the intentions of this jockeying defender. The intention of this jockeying defender, they're trying to get you to go down here and block off the inside. And now we also understand their fear. They don't want you to come inside. So now we can use this information to our advantage. For example, if you knock the ball inside, what am I going to do? I'll either back off like this, or I'll turn my hips slightly. If you fake to go down this way, because I'm showing you this way, I will also push off. The reason why I will push off is because if I'm closing off one angle and showing you down one way, that means technically if you knock the ball this way, I'm already a little bit behind because I'm also focused on blocking this path. My main intention is to block here and react to you as soon as you go this way. So as soon as you go to knock, I have to go quick because I'm giving you all this free space to run into. And the closer you get to the goal, the more you can use the goal threat against the defender. 4. The skill starts before the skill. This is a phrase that I came up with once I realized where most players go wrong. We often think the skill itself is the most important part of the skill. Why wouldn't we? But you need to think a little bit differently about dribbling. Any skill done without the right setup won't work. For example, look at this step over versus an engaged defender. Do you notice anything? The touch before the step over here, the angle of approach, set up the skill perfectly. The touch makes the defender plant their feet unsure and in no man's land, as the player can take the ball either way now. A characteristic of the engaged defender is they are super reactive. Again, you will learn everything about every defender type in the course. Just before we dive into the analysis, in order to be able to implement this information into your games and training, there is one vital cue you need to be able to read before anything else. And this is the defender type. There are 6 types, or 6 defending styles a defender will be in at any given time. Now, the step over makes them react here as they're playing catch up, reacting to you due to the angle of approach done before the skill. Here with a Zidane roulette, we have another engaged defender coming from the side this time. Look at the touch before the skill, touching the ball here to bait the defender here. Once he commits, he now does the Zidane roulette against his momentum. So as you see, the skill always starts before the skill.
Side. This is where defenders approach directly from the side. The main thing you need to understand is the importance of the touch before the Zidane roulette. Players touch the ball forwards to bait the defender across more aggressively, leaving the ball vulnerable momentarily. The attacker.
Second scenario involves no passing lane bait, making the defender commit one way or on the other wrong line. This slight delay from Neymar makes the defender run on this line. If he touches the ball with no delay here, the defender can run on this line. So Neymar's delay keeps this space open. Bernardo Silva versus Torre. And when you're watching dribbling now, and you see a successful dribble, ask yourself, what set up the skill? Was it the angle of approach? Was it the delay? And so on. 5. When to dribble and when to pass. I've been asked this question over 100 times on my socials. And it is such a great question. Firstly, because when you dribble, you want to confidently commit to the dribble. We don't want to be thinking in the back of our mind, should I be passing right now? Or what if I lose the ball? And so on. You need to be locked into the dribble to read the relevant cues and triggers for that specific scenario and defender type. And here's why it's impossible for me to answer that question straight away. Because next I need to ask, well, it depends what scenario you're dribbling in. I think when we have no dribbling IQ, we only picture this one scenario as dribbling. But as we've mentioned, there are way more. This clip, for example. Paused here, the best place for the ball to go is to Iniesta, who is in tons of space. So we could say the best decision is not to dribble, but to pass. But once you understand this specific scenario, a compact scenario, with a team in a low block, defenders in a compact scenario are highly engaged, meaning they react to anything. Why? Because of the risk and reward balance. The risk and reward balance ties into the defender's psychology. If this defender gets beat, it doesn't really matter because others are waiting just behind. Meaning the risk is low. But if he tackles Messi and intercepts the ball, they can have a dangerous counter-attack, meaning the reward is high. Remember, an engaged defender is one of the 6 defender types. Let's compare this to another of the defender types, a jockeying defender. If he gets beat, especially in a goal threat scenario, it could be a goal. And this is why a jockeying defender is more passive, waiting patiently to make the tackle at the right time, due to the risk and reward balance. So now you see how much of a game changer this knowledge is. And trust me, this is only scratching the surface. But back to our decision-making situation here. We said the best decision is to pass, not dribble. But now we understand defenders in compact scenarios are highly engaged. That means we know if we turn our body to play a pass, they will run to try and cut off the passing lane. So the thought process in this specific scenario is different. It's okay, but can I pass, as I know he will try to cut off the passing lane. Here, Messi turns to play the pass. But what he's really doing is testing the defender. Is the passing lane still open enough for a safe pass? Okay, no it's not. And he does the Iniesta skill. But hold on, remember the skill starts before the skill. Let's slow it down. What does Messi use here? He uses delay. He could do the skill now, but he waits and does it now. Why? The more the defender shuts off the passing lane, the more the space inside is free. And in a compact scenario, you need as much space as possible. So he hops and leaves his foot hanging next to the ball before doing the skill. And now he passes to Iniesta. So this decision making was more like, okay, a pass would be good, but is it safe? The answer, no. Now I need to dribble to be able to play the ball here. There needs to be an intention behind your dribble. Well, let's take Mitoma as an example in the most popular dribbling scenario we all think of, again against a jockeying defender. Should he dribble or pass? Well, let's think about it more clearly. What's the aim of passing anyway? To give it to someone in a more dangerous position than you, especially in the final third. Can Mitoma make a more deadly pass here? Or here? Of course here. In these situations, if you back yourself and you know how to read a defender and manipulate them exactly like Mitoma does here, by faking a cross inside against the defender's hips, then you will confidently back yourself to get in this situation. But Remy, what if I mess up and get tackled and lose the ball when I could have kept possession and played the ball inside? You need to think more bold as a dribbler. Think about it like this. If Mitoma passes the ball from here 10 times, how many times will this result in a goal? Maybe 1. If he passes the ball from here, how many times will this result in a goal? Maybe 3 or even more. If you're always playing it safe, you're not going to impact the game. If you know how to use the right skills in the right scenario against the right defender type, then you can get yourself in more dangerous positions to then pass the ball. The 4 pillars of a successful dribble. The more I systemized dribbling, the more I realized all dribbles had 4 components in them. This is called the 4 pillars of a successful dribble. For those who follow me on Instagram or TikTok, you will have heard me speak about them a lot. But this is the first time I'm showing you them in order.
Let me introduce you to the 4 pillars of a successful dribble. 1. Angle of approach. This is the angle at which you approach a defender. Your angle of approach will determine how much control you have in the duel. Your angle of approach can massively set you up for success if done right, or failure if not. When a defender is defending, they're trying to shut off the most dangerous angle and show you down the least dangerous angle. This is how they try to control a 1 versus 1. For example here, the defender is blocking off the inside angle and trying to force the attacker down the line. If he knocks the ball where the defender wants him to go, the defender is now in control, as all they need to do is keep showing you further and further away from danger. So your goal with your angle of approach is to run at an angle which keeps both options open. The defender is now in a world of uncertainty. If he wants to continue blocking off this angle, he will have to move over, giving more room here. A defender not in control is more likely to fall for your tricks. Once you've achieved a successful angle of approach, and you're now in the driving seat, this can now lead to our second pillar, momentum advantage. This is where you take the ball against the defender's momentum. By making the defender slightly commit one way with a piece of skill, and they'll either plant their feet or edge to block off an angle. As the momentum is either stopping or going one way, you're going the other way. This now puts you in even more control. So you have some momentum advantage and you've slightly got away from the defender. This leads to our third pillar, playing catch up. Now you've gained some yards over the defender. Even if it's just 1, the whole psychology of the defender has changed. They're making up lost yards and now playing catch up. In this stage, the defender is moving quicker, most of the time sprinting to get back level to find some control in the duel, and this is right where you want them. This is where they are more vulnerable to diving in and making a rash tackle. Once you realise you've achieved the defender playing catch-up, you're now able to work the 4th pillar, bait. Bait is a piece of skill to convince a defender to 100% commit to a tackle. You're in control, you're ahead, and he's desperately playing catch-up. With a skill time right here, you can go against the defender's momentum again. Because they're moving faster, it will take longer for them to recover, most of the time leaving them in the dust. A little side note on this pillar, coaches teach attackers to not beat defenders twice. So attackers grow up getting some momentum advantage, whether this be a yard or 2 yards, and they're taught to always capitalise on this, whether it's forcing out a cross or a shot. When you have a defender playing catch-up, their psychology has also been wired this way too, that you're going to capitalise on any little yard that you've gained. And this is why they're easier to fool too. Players who make a difference do beat the defenders twice in some situations, as it makes them way less predictable. The less predictable you are in a dribble, the less control the defender feels they have, the more rash decisions they will make. Bait is the icing on the cake, the finishing move, which leaves the defenders in the dust. In today's game, leaving a marker in the dust is game-changing. In modern football, teams are so organised and so compact that games become stagnant and teams can go a full 90 minutes, hardly penetrating the opposition. A player who can get past the defender, and I mean completely get past the defender. Remember, not capitalising on tiny yards, but baiting the defender again to fully shake him off, doubling down. Now you're driving with the ball unmarked and an opposition player has to leave their slot to engage, leaving more spaces on the field for your teammates.
All scenarios and defender types don't always need the 4 pillars. Some will only need 2. Again, no stone unturned in both of these 2 courses. We cover every single one to make it crystal clear. But hopefully this opens your eyes. And now see if you can spot these happening. And this leads us onto something very interesting, and I can guarantee you've never thought about this before. 7. Momentum versus bait mechanics for the defender. How do we actually beat a defender? What has to happen for us to beat them? For example, can we only beat a defender once they go to tackle and miss? Gaining momentum advantage, the second pillar, over a defender most of the time doesn't lead to us beating them. It's after bait, the 4th pillar, which does. The 3 ways to gain momentum advantage over a defender is by getting them to push off in one direction, plant their feet, or slow down. All different against different defender types. But interestingly, when we fully beat a defender with bait, we see more defenders trying to either block a shot or pass, or tackle and miss. 8. Strength is also weakness. Although we have 6 defender types, defenders themselves have different styles of defending. The main one most attackers hate playing against is that lightning fast, sharp defender, characterized by the feet moving at lightning speed when jockeying, ready to go in any direction. The opposite to this is a more slow defender who uses timing to their advantage. As they aren't as fast, they have adapted to be less reactive. Sometimes very frustrating to play against, as they don't seem to move much when you do a skill. When you're walking on the pitch ready to start a game and the whistle blows and you go to try and take on the opposition player you're against, and this can be in any position. You try to take them on, they have lightning fast feet and they tackle you. Do you ever just lose a ton of confidence and feel like it's going to be impossible to get past that defender that game? Let me tell you one sentence that will help you with that. No matter the defender style, whether being a sharp defender or relaxed, their strength is also their weakness. Let's take the reactive fast defender, for example, Ben Arthur here. He uses the speed against them. Some body feints to disguise where he's going, and the small burst down the line, now making the defender playing catch-up. Then using this space as bait to do a fake cross. And look at the sharp defender. He can't stop. This is how you need to think about dribbling. No matter how fast or patient the defender is, that defender you struggle getting past, you can use those exact qualities you struggle against to actually beat them if you use them correctly. And you'll notice, especially in part 2, the Elite Dribbling Guide, some skills are best used against sharp defenders, whereas other skills are best used against more patient defenders. 9. The most underlooked skill in the whole of football, or soccer for you Americans. Out of every single skill we deep dive into, covering the exact cues and triggers to look for in any scenario to make your skill as effective as possible, there is one skill that I have never heard mentioned in my entire life. And to put it in perspective how much this skill is used, in the process of making these courses, I have to go through thousands and thousands of clips to then try and find patterns and systemize them. This skill I'm about to tell you about, I had the most footage for out of any other skill, as I came across it the most. And this skill I call the stretched touch.
Stretched touch. The stretched touch is a skill where players poke the ball whilst at a stretch.
And this skill, in my opinion, is the most underlooked skill there is. Me personally, I've never heard anybody talk about it, but it's one of the most commonly used skills. And we're going to explore the 5 different ways the stretch touch can be used. And this is one of Messi's secrets. You'll see in the elite level dribbling guide, we break it down in 5 ways, covering every possible scenario. And the interesting thing about this skill is that it's an umbrella skill for other skills, meaning that these other skills incorporate the stretch touch in them. An example of this is the cut across. Again, every single scenario we cover, whether it's coming from the side, the back to the defender, or in front. All of these cut across scenarios use a stretch touch to do it. You touch the ball across or in front of the defender and get your body in between them. With this skill, there is one man who has mastered it, and that is Eden Hazard. When you see him doing those crazy driving runs, it often involves the cut across, and that's who we will be studying a lot here. Here, we will cover 3 scenarios. The first one, most likely the scenario you're picturing, defender chasing. This scenario is characterized by the defender chasing from behind. The goal here is to touch the ball in front of you on the same line at which the defender is running, and then get yourself between the defender and the ball, in turn making the defender have to slow down or give a foul away. Now, with the basic knowledge of how a cut across works, let's break down lots of scenarios in the defender chasing scenario. And there is a vital piece of information we will cover to make your cut across in this scenario perfect. 3 more skills also use it. The roadmap to becoming an elite dribbler. All in all, the roadmap to becoming an elite dribbler has 2 steps. First, the knowledge. The knowledge of all the defender types, all dribbling scenarios, how each skill works in relation to all those dribbling scenarios and defender types. Because remember, skills are only effective in specific scenarios. And lastly, how the 4 pillars work in every different scenario. The second part is effective training, which is added at the end of part 2, the elite level dribbling guide. We have individual drills to do that replicates every single dribbling scenario you will come across with every single skill. We start off with the drill and then the coaching points afterwards. And here is one drill you can use. A few really important coaching points. The first one, let's speak about your escape after you do the hop. Especially with the defender here, the jockeying defender. They're like this. As you're coming in from this way, it's really important with the ball, the angle of approach. You're taking the ball a little bit more here. So you're encouraging this defender to come over like this. As soon as you do the hop, that's more information for the defender that you go in this way. When the defender goes this way, remember the weight's planted here, this leg will stick out, okay? So that means this touch needs to be super sharp. Here, like a 90-degree chop, you can think about it like that, okay? So you come in slow, 1, 2, straight down the line. Make sure it's not inside because his foot will get it. And then with the drill against the planted defender, it's really important that you don't show where you're going to touch the ball. And you've looked up, you've seen the planted defender, you're driving at the planted defender, and the hop gives you time to assess when he begins to push off to engage. As soon as he does that, that's when you can then touch the ball to the side. And make sure it's nice and wide, and also a sharp cut as well for that outstretched leg. As always, go both sides. Make sure you're doing it on the other side as well. And again, remember with the drills, whenever you're doing them, try and visualize where you would be on the pitch. Remember, dribbling is all about different scenarios. So you need to have these scenarios ingrained in your mind and then train them effectively like this, and then it will become second nature. And the reason step 1 knowledge isn't enough because we want dribbling to eventually become instinctual. And we can only do this by replicating game realistic scenarios to put into drills. I coach absolutely everything we cover in both courses combined over 5 hours of footage. the cues, the triggers for each specific scenario, the defender types, and the psychology, how they're thinking, what their intentions are, and how the specific skill that you use leverages that. So you will even know exactly what the skill you're doing is actually doing to the defender, both physically and psychologically. My whole goal is to create the most effective training plans for footballers, because I trained and trained and trained. Yes, I reached a good height, but when I think about my training, it was useless. And it is genuinely so frustrating to reflect back and think how much time was wasted. But it's just because there wasn't a path paved. So one of my biggest goals is that no player ever is left with this frustration of thinking, what could my potential have been? But in order for the player to get the most out of the drills, they first need to know the ins and outs of the dribbling theory. So I hope this video has given you tons of value, way beyond your expectation. This is 2 years of studying condensed into one video, let alone my whole career, starting at the age of 6 and finishing at the age of 26. And there are quite a lot of other points I could share too. Potentially in the future, I can make a part 2 to this video. I hope you understand I dedicate everything to my work, and especially the paid products. For those of you who want to invest in your game, whether you're a player or a coach, I promise you the investment that you make will pay you back more than you can imagine, instantly as well. I say this confidently because all of the success stories I get, and you can check some of them out on the reviews as well. I also understand everybody isn't in the position to pay for paid products. That's why I also have free products, the free Football IQ and Decision Making course. If you haven't watched that, go check that out. Over 3,000 players, coaches, and analysts have watched that, and it has over 150 reviews, every single one being 5-star. I'll put everything in the description of the video below. Have a reflection on your dribbling game or coaching, and see how any of these points that we covered in this video can help elevate that. But most of all, keep chasing your potential.